Special.
He said 70 RBIs in his last game, 70 games.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. And no one talks about it.
Well, there's a lot of people that the Braves talk about right now, like Austin Riley's MVP kind of guy, Dansby having the season that he's having. It's just hard. Someone's going to get lost in the shuffle.
Spencer Strider, Robbie. I mean, Vaughn Grissom. Talk about Vaughn Grissom for the last 2 weeks. He's been the talk of the town. I mean, he's been very good. He's been very good. But I mean, he's going to be the second best first baseman on the field tonight. If he can be the best first baseman on the field, maybe they'll win. So
we'll see. Last thing, the Hawks, they reportedly, and I'm just going to throw this out there in this way, for the folks on youtube.com/ChaseThomas Podcast, I'm doing some air quotes here, made an offer for Kevin Durant before he was taken off the market by the Nets after a meeting between the boardroom and the Brooklyn Nets to run it back at least for one more year in Brooklyn with Kyrie and Ben Simmons and see how it all looks in the court and if they can make it all work. DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and a pick was the reported offer. And let me tell you, that is not a reported offer for Kevin Durant. That was never something that the Brooklyn Nets were ever going to entertain. So people freaking out about the Hawks offered and try to get Kevin Durant. The Hawks did not try to get Kevin Durant. The Hawks did their due diligence of did we catch Sean at a good time? Like maybe he's just really stressed today and he's just like, all right, whatever.
Drunk.
Yeah, that's just it's not a real. It was not a real.
Maybe
offer.
He's under the influence of some narcotic or something like that. I mean, that's the only way. I'm sorry, with all due respect. I mean, they're not taking that offer. I do think it's interesting though.
I love the Hawks are still big game hunting, theoretically, after trading for DeJounte Murray. I mean, the issue is now all the picks are gone. Like you made the big pick trade for DeJounte. And now, if they were to add one final star, when you look at this roster, it really will come down to a healthy DeAndre Hunter having a career type year and John Collins even taking the next step. Like that's what it's going to probably take is those two really, at least one having a breakthrough year. Like DeAndre Hunter just becoming not a star because I just don't see that. A really, really good player that someone else can talk themselves into where it's like, oh, you bring him in here. Maybe he's a point forward with a bigger role, higher usage, and we can do something if he's over the injury stuff. Like that's who I don't think the star chasing, I think you're pretty much done. The DeJounte kind of locked that in now. What do you think?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think they can still continue to develop talent that we have here and compete.
No, I'm saying trade for one.
Well, yeah. I don't think you're bringing in somebody via trade necessarily. I think you're going to be bringing in somebody via free agency, whoever that would be. I think that would probably be the final step in this solution anyway. Yeah. When you go get a DeJounte Murray, you pay market value for him, and then you use that to say, hey, look what we have here. Come here and win. And next year is what you're really going to see is hey, this is what we have. This is the prove it year where you're like, hey, we have the tools to win a championship. I don't think they're going to win a championship this year. I think a successful season is top 4, top 5 in the Eastern Conference, which is a very good Eastern Conference, mind you. I think that's what you're trying to do that this year. What you're also trying to do is say, hey, look what we got. And I think that this team is perfectly capable of doing that. I think they can win 50 games. But you just don't have the assets anymore to go after big game hunting, like you're not going to go get whoever that last piece unless you think that Trae Young is your superstar and DeJounte Murray is the elite number 2. And then, like you said, the elite number 3 emerges and his name is DeAndre Hunter or John Collins or whoever.
Chandru Brown, people are saying.
Yeah. Or Mo Harkless or whoever, right?
Tyrese Martin.
Yeah. But
Tyson Etienne. There are going to be some guys who might.
They've got some. I mean, I think they've got some. They have more of an identity this year, and I think that's a step in the right direction.
Frank the Tank is in the building.
Frank the Tank. I mean, what a guy, right? Mm-hmm. So
good bench guy. I can see. Like he gets really involved. He's really animated.
He's like the
he's
on the bench.
He's someone you want on the bench. Like he is a good bench guy. I think he'll actually fit in pretty nicely.
Very nicely, squarely on the bench. But no, look,
you need guys like that, man.
You've got an identity if you're the Hawks, and I think that's a step in the right direction. You're not trading for that final superstar, like you said. It's just not happening. But fortunately, you have a superstar in Trae Young, and you have probably one of the best number twos in the NBA. I just want to see if they play well together. And God, I'm very excited to see that happening in 2 months. Hard to believe it's already 2 months away.
This might be the most hyped I am for a Hawks season in some time, just because I want to see.
Since last year.
No, way more than last year, because I was pretty dubious going into last year, where I seem to recall where I was like, I don't know.
I had the veil pulled over my eyes. I was ready to ride. And, no. But, I mean, hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah. I was worried of like, oh, they're going to buy too much into this core. Like, it was one of those where they're going to stand pat because they made the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, oh, we turned the corner. I'm like, I don't know if that's the case, but we'll see. But I think there's a path back. Vegas likes this team somewhere in the 4-5. If you're in that 4-5 zone, that means like injuries are going to happen. You're going to be right there to host a first round series, which is huge. Like, for the Hawks this year, the focus should be get that 4 spot. Like, at the very least, get the 4 seed. Hope you can get 3 seed, whatever. But that should be the goal. And they're basically only going to play vets. You look at this roster, it's a roster where I think the ceiling's pretty high. Or the floor, is pretty high. And the ceiling will come down to how Trey and Dejounte play together. And
exactly. I mean, if this is just peanut butter and jelly between those two, then this team can really take off. Like, I'm talking really take off. But I mean, we'll see, man. I think it's going to be, it's at least going to be entertaining basketball, And I mean, at the very end of the day, like that's going to be fun to watch, because you've got your lead, your dog on defense, and DeJounte Murray, and he's just going to be somebody who we wanted. DeJounte Murray is who people thought Kevin Huerter could be. Like, everyone wanted Kevin Huerter to be that dog, but I love Kevin Huerter. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's my cousin, so don't get me wrong.
I love that you're leaning into the redhead stuff now. Yeah. This is great.
Nah, we just look kind of similar. We're most just pale dudes from the East Coast.
I can relate to that.
But look, I mean, first, he was a good player. I liked him a lot, but he was never going to be that dog that you need. And DeJounte Murray is that dog. He's going to go out there and lock down the perimeter. And I mean, he's going to take away some pressure from Trae Young, and I love that. And I think that's the exact thing that this Hawks team needed. And you lean on your backcourt, and I mean, when you take away a little bit more pressure off of Clint Capella, and you don't have people just sort of streaming in there, right? I mean, Clint Capella's play is going to be elevated, and I just want to see John Collins take another step, and I want to see, like you said, DeAndre Hunter is the other guy. Stay healthy. Let's see what this team can do. Because I think 46.5, I think that's a strong number. I think 50 is not out of the equation.
My gut tells me that Capella and Onyeka will not both be on this roster by the end of this season.
I tend to agree. I don't know. This might be this is certainly the final year of having both of those guys on the roster.
Yeah.
Just because you're coming due to a contract with Onyeka Okongwu, and if this guy's going to be on your roster next year, then he needs to be like starting and playing a bunch of minutes with Trey and DeJounte.
You got to see what you have.
You have to. So I think we've seen pretty much everything we need to see out of Clint. We know who Clint's going to be, and Clint's good, and I like.
And he's got the best player impossible in his corner in Trae Young.
And he's got the kingpin of the franchise. I mean, it's like the head of the mafia on your squad,
Yeah.
So
that helps.
That means a great deal. But at the end of the day, it's like I think Onyeka Okongwu has a higher ceiling. Just defensively, he's more agile, and we've seen what he's been able to do in the playoffs. But he hasn't had the minutes to really continue to develop that we'd like to see necessarily. But
I wonder if it ends with like Capella and maybe DeAndre Hunter for Harrison Barnes.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting. I don't
like if the Sacramento season goes awry early next year, like Barnes is going to be.
I mean, they're going for it this year. That Sacramento team, they're really going for it, but that's a tough Western Conference.
I mean, they're basically playing. I mean, they're still just a play. Like the West is just tough. Like the Lakers are going to be fighting for the play-in. Like,
is the Eastern Conference finally? Can we finally say that the Eastern Conference is better than the Western Conference right now?
I think the Eastern.
I think it was better last year.
I think the Eastern Conference, the top of the East is better than the top of the West. I will say that. See, I think the Bucks, Celtics,
I would have gone the other direction.
Heat. Huh?
What do you mean? You just named 4 teams. That's the top half.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the top half, like the best of the best in the East, I think are the better as a whole than the best of the best in the West. But the bad teams of the East, I think outnumber the bad teams of the West. That's what I still struggle with. Like the Pistons are going to be awful. The Magic are going to be awful. I mean, check going out for the year.
The playoff teams are better.
Yes,
I'd say the playoff team, which at the end of the day, like that defines the conference as much, if not more, than the bottom the cellar dwellers.
I would agree with that. That.
I'd say the Eastern Conference is just as good as the West.
It's a conversation.
It's for the first time in many years. I mean, the Eastern Conference was terrible, but I'd say
we were having below 500 teams make the playoffs all the time back in the day.
Yeah, last 2 years though. I mean, you have who made the what is it? The Pelicans and the Timberwolves were.
I mean, the Pelicans just moved up from like the 11 seed, right, or 10 seed, and they played their way in with the play-in.
Neither of those teams were any good. Neither of those teams would have sniffed the playoffs in the Eastern Conference last year.